La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti, everyone. Here is Fabrizio and...
Hey, Fabrizio, it's Matt. It's great to see you. How's it going?
It's great here at La Lanterna podcast. We're finally at, well, I shouldn't say finally, but we are at episode number 34.
It's incredible.
That's insane.
Did you ever think we would get past 2 episodes when we first started doing this thing? I didn't think this was going to last very long.
Well, you know what? I have to be honest with you. Once we got that pilot out, or episode 0, however we want to call it, I said, you know what? This is going to happen, period.
I like it. And we're getting some momentum too. It's kind of fun.
It's so great that actually today we can also say that we launched a chat on WhatsApp with English-speaking Genoani from all over the world.
It's so cool.
That's so cool. I swear to you, I even wrote that when I did the introduction, when we opened that chat, that it really gives me tears to see how many people that we got. You know, it's like, if you think about the olden days, no social media, no nothing. So it was hard to get in touch and whatnot. Right. So not only the fact of being able to be so close yet so far. So we have Stefan from Germany, we have Hans from Holland, and we have yourself from New York, myself from Toronto, and a whole bunch even Enrico from Vietnam, and Tobia from Edinburgh, et cetera, right? And I'm just mentioning a few.
In Charlotte.
Exactly. I'm just mentioning a few that people know them if by following our podcast, right? But first of all, if you do want to join on our chat, which is absolutely, I did it in a way the opposite. I did it right after the Genoa-Venezia match, so it was we kind of lost that type of commentary that we could have had during the match, which we were all going to get
there
angry.
Were a lot of comments, though. I mean, that was I think we had more comments in there than the New York group chat for a second. So,
well, see, I have the Genoani Si Resta chat as well, which there's an insanity number of people now, which is almost unbearable under control. But they have probably, I'm going to say about 40 people. But certain times, depending on the momentum, of course, mind you, that's a big group, and we're a decent number now. I didn't really count them, but I'm sure we're in the teens sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But so if you're interested, DM us on our social media, which we usually do the advertising at the end, or announce it, we shout out and whatnot, but on our Instagram account or Facebook account or Twitter account, just DM us and we'll make sure that you can be added as well. So that was awesome. And the group chat is just called We Are Genoa.
Love it. It's a lot of fun. Hope to see some new folks in the chat in the next few weeks.
And we'll have a great, incredible, surprisingly surprise in the second half. I'm not going to mention anything about it, but it's going to be something just, I think it's our mandate for sort of thing, part of our podcast. Anyways, so what happened was on Monday we had, what was that? Match day 20. So the first match day of the second round. And that was having Venezia over in Genova at the Marassi.
Yeah.
So it looked like almost it was a little bit nasty in a way match. It
was very cold too.
Yeah. Oh, the temperature, you mean, or the
yes.
Yeah. That as well. I think it was around 6 degrees or something.
Yeah.
But it's very humid. Sometimes it gets in the winter, so certain moments can be a little too fresh for some. Anyways, the match seemed quite rough. It ended 1-0 for Genoa at the end. So 3 points great for our momentum. We caught the second spot with Regina. So now there's 6 points dividing from the first to the second. We're at par with Regina. Officially, we're on the third because the first thing that you do is you look at the direct confrontation, and direct confrontation, obviously, against Regina is not to our favor. Right. But nevertheless, we're at the second spot. And that means that's essentially exactly what we were looking for. We wanted to catch that second spot, 36 points, 42 for Frosinone. And Bari is just trailing right behind us, not too far, 3 points down below, but they're in the fourth spot. Pisa still hanging in there, even after their loss with Cittadella at 29 points. Südtirol still hanging in there themselves, still at the sixth spot with 29 points as well. Unbelievable the first group. Actually, we actually have Ternana still actually that caught up with them at 29 as well. Right. Cagliari, with their last match, reached 28. So that's the last spot for the playoff. And then immediately thereafter, which does not mean, as we said that throughout in all the podcasts, that it takes 2 seconds, even with our guests and Marco, even last pod, that essentially you can do 1 or 2 wins and you can climb up, or 1 or 2 wins and drop down, like very deep down. So Parma 27 on the 9th spot. And then we start the other group with other 4 teams at 25. So from the 10th to the 13th spot, we have Ascoli, Modena, Palermo, Brescia. Brescia, we got news there where their coach got sacked, and they recalled the previous coach, which is apparently very typical Italian.
As we saw this week in Serie A as well, actually.
Exactly. Let's just quickly say that. Shout out to our friend, former coach, Davide Nicola, which 3 days ago got sacked because of that 8-2 loss against Atalanta. And not even 48 hours later, they rehired him.
Wait a minute. Okay, we're in better shape than we thought. Okay, keep Davide Nicola. I'm happy to see him.
And then just to close us, the last part of the standings, we have Spal at 23 together with Benevento, which is going to be focus. We're going to focus more on the second half which is our next opponent. Yep. And then we have Como and Cittadella at 22. So Cittadella kind of gets out of the ropes from the bottom 3. As you see, just 1 win just brings them up. Venezia and Perugia in the third last and second last spot with 20 points. And Cosenza, even though they grabbed 1 point, they're still last, but at 18. Again, we all hopes out to the bottom teams. So let's quickly talk about Genoa-Venezia. First of all, I want to say Venezia does not deserve that spot. What do you think, Matt?
No, Venezia. I mean, it's so bizarre, honestly, to look at this game, and also not even just this game though, but the last several matches that they've played, and to see them currently in a relegation place. I mean, albeit they're the top team on 18th. And of course, there's nothing really separating them in Como and Cittadella if you think about points and all that stuff. But this is not the 18th best team in the league. Absolutely not. And when you consider, who they have, how they can kind of score the ball, there's a lot of dangerous players on this squad, and we saw that obviously when we played them over the weekend or on Monday.
No, it's funny because even when we had Marco on the last pod, he was telling us about a few individuals there, saying that they were not doing as well as he thought. And he was saying, this player, I can't now remember the specifics of what player. I wish we had him right now just to mention those names. But and then at the end, they were like, a lot of them were actually quite important on the actual match for themselves as well. So like, oh my God, that match. Actually, let's quickly have a quick break. I have a recording from Marco Rinaldi from the Rigore pod, by the way. So we remember that also after. But essentially, he like what we're trying to do lately too is have our our guest that talks a little bit about the match that happened, because when we recorded it was before the match. So let's quickly hear what Marco had to say.
Hi guys, you wanted my post-match thoughts on Genoa-Venezia. I have to say I thought we were pretty unlucky. I thought we matched Genoa pretty much blow for blow and actually had the better chances in the first half. Chernigoi putting it one past the post and then hitting the bar. I think as the game went on, we probably did sit a little too deep. And we had a warning when Aramu's goal was disallowed for offside, but we didn't learn from that. And obviously, Coda then managed to grab the winner near the end. It was a bit of a frustrating match because I think we deserved something out of it. And to be honest, some of the antics towards the end by the Genoa players were rather frustrating as a fan. Vogliaccio definitely going for an Oscar with his ridiculous dive near the end. But if we play like that against other teams, I'm hopeful that we should have enough to certainly stay in the division. So good luck on your promotion push, and hopefully we can at least stay in Serie B for the season, and hope to speak to you again soon. And remember, you can hear me moaning about Venezia and the teams we play against every week on the Rigore podcast, which is available from all the best podcast apps. Thanks.
Thank you, Marco, for your comments. And you're absolutely right. It was a very tough match. It was incredible in the first half to see Venezia. It made us, all of us Genoani, a little scared of where it was going, because the first half was definitely more on the Venezia side. And then I'd have to say that Gilardino, I'm so happy to have Gilardino, Matt. It's like, seriously, how he was able to manage to read the match. He changed the formation right at the beginning of the second half on the defense side by pulling out a midfielder, changing the defender, and so on. So from a defense of 4, which I don't think Criscito is the best for a defense at 4, he put it at 3. Some people even call it a 5, depending on what you call those on the side ones that go up towards also the midfield. But that's what changed the game. Essentially, also in the second half, it was quite different. And then I'm going to agree 100% with what Marco said with respect to Vogliacco. Both on the fact that he's like a great player and he's going to be a talented guy, and for sure we'll see more of him. But those awful type of drama where you get some sort of like a half slap on the face because you were walking and that hand kind of got up, and then you drop on the ground and you look like a fish that is out of the water, like flipping like crate. Like, seriously?
We don't need it. Nobody asked for that. Nobody wants to see that stuff. I mean, at the end, it was a match that kind of got out of control, and I think those things kind of sometimes happen because players are trying to take advantage of it. But I have to tell you,
I mean, in a way, I'm happy that the ref didn't say anything.
Yeah,
because it could have gone bad wrongfully. So for Venezia, because, you make a scene and you're always thinking about the worst, right? Especially in that convoluted type of moment.
that's right.
But I think that things like this, and I'm a Genoano, so I'm going against a Genoa player, but I think things like this, and I'm not talking about only about Genoa, like I'm even putting that reference to Immobile in the Euros, where he fell on the floor like if he was fouled like hell, and then seconds after we get the goal, and then he stands up. It's like, that's gonna have forever remain in my brain and say that's ridiculous.
It's a classic moment, though.
And this was similar for a different reason, of course, right? But things like this, in my opinion, should get punished.
It's very clear embellishment. It's obvious. I mean, I think you could call it a foul from what happened beforehand. I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily intentional, but you just don't need all that other stuff. You don't need. It's like the meme of Neymar rolling around and around and around again from that. I think it was the 2014 World Cup or something. But no, I mean, look, honestly, I think this would have been a very different podcast if the last several minutes of the match didn't end the way that it did, because we were kind of messaging during the game, and it felt like in the first half, it's like, God, can we just get to the break, because we were under assault from Venezia. And
it started very strong on our side, like the first few minutes, and then it was all Venezia after that.
The first few, yes, but it did feel like one-way traffic, especially in like the latter part, mid to latter part of the second half. And you saw, I think you say his name, Kunagoi. He had a complete sitter that he kind of missed. I think partially because Mimo put him off and got a tackle in just in time without conceding a penalty.
Yeah.
I think he hit the bar later, if I'm not mistaken, and then you saw Poya and Paolo have a decent chance. Busio looked kind of lively during the game, which I think was something that Marco had discussed leading up to this as a guy that needed to step up, and he seemed like he did. And shouts to my former Sporting Kansas City player for putting in a decent performance. But, you know, for a lot of this game, I felt like, is the storyline going to be the same stupid refrain that we've had about not having the clinical nature up front, seeing some of the substitutions we had? You know, we were kind of wondering what's going to happen. We ended up bringing on Yalchin later on in the match, and I think there were some question marks there, but it ultimately came good. And to your
Matt, seriously, when Yalchin came in, I was like, okay, that's over. It's over. And everyone was like, what do you mean it's over? Yeah, Yalchin just came in. So it's like,
we're conditioned, because I think, like, you know, when you look at our bench now and you look at the guys who we have in that forward position, there's really, it's like three guys now. Really, it's Puskás, Coda, and Yalchin. Those are the three players. You've got Aramu and Goodmanson and guys like that who can play a little bit more on the wing. But, you know, for a lot
of people were disappointed in not understanding why Goodmanson got subbed. I think he was quite tired, and definitely we have to understand that. And I'm going to say this clearly now, based on the fact that we just said before, for the fact that Gilardino knows how to read the match. He knows the players quite well enough anyways. It's still like we're now at the fifth game that we're having, actually sixth if you count the Roma match.
Yeah.
But he knows them, right? So he's starting to know them. He knows if he needs to be taken out because of too tired, because of making too many mistakes or whatnot. I did feel that Goodmanson was not his best performance anyways.
Yeah.
He did get voted on by Genoa CFC, like the club itself, as the best. They do a monthly poll for voting the best player of the month.
Yeah,
and it was actually Goodmanson for the month of December. I think Coda was for the month of October.
Coda was
Strutman.
Yes, I think you're right. Strutman was November.
I can't remember September. I don't even know if they had it or not, because I just cannot remember it. Yeah. But so it was a Goodmanson, and the thing about Goodmanson is you get those good days. The match on Monday was his. It was not a totally no, but it was definitely not a yes. And
I want to go back to what you were talking about in the second half, in being thankful for Gila, being thankful for some of the shifts, because I think this really set the tone for the match. And maybe it didn't really show up to us until the end of the game, but it really, really made a difference. And when you look at kind of right out of halftime, two switches, Jagiello off for Vogliacco, Hefty off for Sabelli. So to your point,
Hefty, another thing, sorry again, I'm sorry for interrupting, but Hefty, what happened to this kid? I'm hoping it's not a Serie B issue. I don't know, but we haven't seen the real Hefty. Remember, we were Hefty boys, right? We're like,
big time.
I haven't seen a great match since sometime at some point of last year of Serie A.
Hefty boys sounds like a different podcast, by the way.
Fair enough.
But I don't know what happened. It's weird. I also, that was another thing that I messaged you. Just Sabelli looks much more comfortable, even if he's not playing in his favorite kind of fullback position. He can flip on either side, and he's still playing a role as we did in this game. You know, we kept Mimo out on the left side.
Having said that, Mimo all 90 minutes, great addition.
Yes.
I'm so I have to say that he has showed that he's bringing that quality extra for Serie B, because he's way above that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something, you know, that finesse in that touch of the ball. You saw that difference.
our entire defensive unit, I think, put in an amazing shift in this game. We had a huge save off the line from Bonnie at the end of the match that was
did you see that?
unbelievable. I mean, I guess it would have ultimately, I think it might have been offside, but
it was offside. Yeah,
see that effort and see him do that. He missed a chance, I think, a little bit later on in the match, but you're not really expecting him to put that away.
And listen, Martinez with that save,
Martinez with the
crossbar
save
that you talked about. Oh wow, that's like a goal done on the other side. Like,
yeah,
not taking a goal is like making a goal, right?
I mean, I think he's got to be, and it seems pretty clear from Gilardino's perspective that he's our number one from now on. He just
that's interesting that you say that. Why do you think that? Like, I'm not saying it's wrong, because I do think that Martinez, he's grown on me to the point of, before I was disappointed too. I was like, why not, because he showed us and so on. As we said already, that we both agree that they're both great goalies.
Yeah.
But I do agree that there's something about Martinez a little bit more over Semper. I don't know why, but it's a feeling.
It's actually not that easy to quantify. I understand what you mean. I mean, for me, he's had enough quality in making some saves like this, where you can feel good about that. I think originally, especially remember the first game against Venezia, it was like, oh my God, he almost spilled like 2 goals. It looked really worrisome. It was a big question mark. Are they going to drop him after this first match? It was like that bad. And there were a couple other games where he had some moments like that. But I think when you watch him play and when you watch how he kind of, especially when he interacts with the back line and maybe the midfielders, like he really does a good job distributing the ball. And we've seen him from a keeping perspective do a really good job. And he made, probably the save of the week this past week. So I think we're kind of spoiled for choices with having Semper as our second keeper, because I think he's a fine keeper in his own right. I just don't rate him as well from distributing the ball. And I think if all of the things are more or less equal, and I think they probably are, Semper is a little bit different. He's a little bit longer, I think. It's just good to see him, and it's good to see that trust, because it was odd seeing every 3 or 4 matches we got a new keeper changing over, and that kind of changes things too. I mean, every keeper has a little bit of a different style when they're communicating with their defense and when they're organizing the team from what they're able to see back there. And so you kind of want to keep that consistency. So it's good to see that, I think.
Absolutely. And from Giovanni Siresta, we saw that he's again the MVP of the match for voting.
Yeah.
And then it's fair enough. Having said that, then Coda. What do you want to say about Coda? So we've been battering him about not his performance being a salsicciotto, meaning like he's a big sausage that he's not moving anymore, or stuff like that. Or like he's done, he's cooked, he's it's over. Sausage, yeah. But he gets the trust from Gilardino. We saw some news throughout the week that some rumors of saying that he was about out the door and so on. Apparently it was the president's choice to keep him and trust him and whatnot. But then when he came in for Puskas, which was another, again, Puskas similar to Goodmanson, he has those great days and he has those bad days. Mm-hmm. Trust him to be the first start this from the starting. But then Coda comes in on the 67th minute, and 20 minutes later, the winner.
Yeah. Well, first of all, maybe need to owe Massimo a little bit of an apology here. We might have been a little bit too harsh with him. He's currently 3rd in the table for Serie B goal scorers so far, even with that struggle. On 7 goals.
Mind you, that 4 are from penalties, but still.
Yes. And mind you, he's tied with Gianluca Lapadula, which I don't think is success, but I'll get that out of the way and pack that bag. He looked up for it as soon as he came on. I think when you saw him, he has sometimes this technical flair that I think gets overlooked, because you sort of think of him as like this target man type of a guy, even though he's not like big, but you kind of think of him as like this number 9, kind of scoring the type of goal that he scored, where his positioning is really good. He does most of the work before the ball even gets there, and he puts it home with a nice finish, but it's almost more positioning. You kind of, in your mind, maybe imagine that he's like that, but almost immediately when he came on, you could see there was a little bit more of a spark, and the combination he was trying to work with different players. Yeah, I don't know if he had a ton of great actual chances before then. I can't recall, but I do remember him on the ball being really impressive and really looking like he was looking for the ball. He was really, you could see that hunger about him and trying to score.
Here's the actual action itself.
Go for it.
Dragusin. Good angle. Has to be. Massimo Coda gets Genoa going at the beginning of 2023.
So we have actually Dragusin coming up from the center left, outside the box.
A couple of times, by the way, it's in the opponent's final third, which was interesting, I thought.
And that's because of the change he did on the second half, mind you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely it is.
So, and I'm loving this because it's showing a lot of, and there was actually an article, an interview from Coda saying, with Blessing, we had less choices, less options because of certain things that he didn't explain, because I guess he shouldn't be explaining certain bad things necessary for Blessing. But he did say that with Gilardino, there's a lot more chances up front. So chances to shoot in the goal and whatnot.
Right.
And he said also in a different interview that he's listening to every advice that Gilardino, being who he is and what he has brought.
Absolutely.
Right. So we have Dragusin to the left, crossing it over on the far right, within the box to guess who?
Yalchin,
right?
An amazing layoff.
Gives a header. That's all he does. So essentially, in my opinion, it should be a co-joint effort on the assist.
You're talking like a hockey assist, where it's like the two passes to a goal. They both get credited in assist.
Yes, I think that's what it should happen. Like essentially, I think they're both they both qualify for it.
Okay, all right.
And so the header of Yalcin over to Coda, and Coda, just like the super striker who should be, right? That we know and everybody claims to him to be, because we only learned once we got relegated that he was the king of Serie B for goal scoring, right? And then he puts it in, and that's rightfully so. And to Marco's point and to everybody's point and whatnot, if it wasn't for that solely great chance, it would have been a stalemate.
It would have been, and I think it would have again.
And it would have been fair to Venezia.
It would have been very fair to Venezia. I mean, Venezia, I don't think really deserved to lose the match. And to be honest, I think that's what I meant earlier. Like, we would probably be sitting back here saying something completely different and feeling in a completely different way about this match, had that had been the outcome and had we lost 2 points, with Regina also dropping points the same week. I think we do need to give Yalchin a little bit of credit here, and I am very.
I can't.
I'm really, really curious about this. So here's my thing: like when Yalchin first had his chances early in the season, before we all thought he was shit, there was chemistry there with him and Coda. Like there was some I don't know if you remember some of the early games. There's not a whole lot of tape on this.
I don't know,
Matt.
I do. Okay, go on.
So I don't think Yalchin is a guy that I would want to have a chance in front of goal. I don't want it to be, we've got a breakaway in his job. I don't even want him to be one-on-one with the keeper. But I think the way that I've seen him before, I do think the layoff in this case is a really, really difficult ball to pull off. This is one that's coming over. It was a great ball in from Dragusin. There's no question about it. But this is a ball that's coming in already. It didn't have like a huge amount of pace to it, but it's pretty high up in the air, and he's running kind of an angled way to try to play the ball back across the line with a defender coming in. And he did it in a way, he got just enough touch on it to keep that pace, but also to keep it in a way where Coda could strike the ball and make something out of it and not have to really take a wild swing and potentially miss the target altogether. And look, it was one play in the game, and he was only on for a handful of minutes and whatever. But I think, like, if we're going to get something out of this guy, if he's going to actually be more of a contributor, which, by the way, we 1,000% are going to need that. Without Yeboah, this is our third option. And Puskas doesn't have it every week. Puskas has put up average performances more often than I think he's had good ones, to be honest with you. So we're going to need these guys to step up. And I think if it's going to work for him, it's going to be more in stuff like this. It's going to be more if we're able to get more of our team in that final third, and we're trying to break through a defense and just have just a little bit of that layoff or a nice pass or a 1-2 or something. I've seen him do that before. And so I think that's the hope, that we get more of that from Yalchin. If we signed a new forward tomorrow, I wouldn't be upset about it. But I think at the end of the day, that's kind of the hope. And with what Gilardino is seeing, what his vision is, hopefully that's something that that helps unlock and change the situation. So we'll see.
But what I wanted to say is also the fact of when you were talking about the fact that Yalcin, he gave this great chance and whatnot. I'm going to track it and sort of like put it with the example of what Yeboah did. So Yeboah, when he did that goal, everyone's like, oh, hey, we should give him, we should forgive him because, he has this chance, but then he never did anything. So I'm not saying that Yalcin is not
about like the first one against Venezia at the start of the season.
Yes, exactly. It never happened after, right? But I'm not saying, and I'm hoping that's not going to happen with Yalcin. But at the same time, I just don't want it to be like that. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I know. You don't want to get your hopes up. I'm not saying that this guy is now our savior. I'm just saying, like, if there in a world where this is going to work, there are more ingredients there for it to work than I think we realize. I think Coda needs a player to play off like that. I think Yalchin has the ability to be a little bit in sync with the guys around him and play more that way than he does to be just like I'm shooting the ball every single time I touch it type of a player. I don't think he's that guy. And I think you've got a manager in Gilardino who has an ability to try to get something out of him. So that's the positive, optimist outlook at this whole thing. Still think he's shit, but maybe a couple of more games and we see something different.
So I want to say three things before we go to the break, and we have our special super secret guest that we talked about earlier on. But first thing I wanted to say is I still dearly miss Ekuban, because I think
absolutely.
Whenever that happens, I want to see what happens. Hopefully the guy's not going to be like in a long try to recoup on the fact that he had that double surgery, right? So it's not an easy surgery that he had to go through.
Right.
But I know also reading a few articles that even in that funny video at Christmas, that he's excited that he wants to be back on the pitch. So that's a good and a positive thing aspect, especially for the guy, right? They're kids. I mean, he is one of the oldest one. I always keep to forget that Ekuban is not like in his early 20s. He's like in his late 20s. I think he's 29, but still,
Is he that old?
Yeah, he is. Doesn't look like, right? Physically speaking, he's like this super rock, full of muscle and so agile too, right? Like the opposite of Coda. I could be wrong. Thank you for checking and letting us know. But so second thing I wanted to talk quickly, talk quickly about is the market. So you mentioned that Yeboah was loaned out at FC Augsburg in the Bundesliga.
Right.
So it's a straight. No, it's not a straight. Sorry, it's a loan with the right to buy.
Right to buy, yeah.
Then there is some interest on a couple of players. I can't remember off the name off the top of my head right now, but it's an interesting striker. People are talking very good about him from Torino. There's an interest around there. And then they also, and some people are not too happy about this, also some sort of interest. So there's like only initial queries for Salcedo, our former Salcedo.
Interesting.
So that's the only rumors we have so far for the Mercato. And lastly, just wanted to quickly touch upon, which I forgot to do it in the last pod, about the Primavera. So the Primavera with a new coach coming on, they did win against Lanerossi Vicenza. It was a great match, great goal. Like especially the second one was quite beautiful. I was talking about it with our guest that's coming soon in the second half, and there should be a lot more coverage. I'm very disappointed, not only with Genoa, but in general with all teams. Some Some teams do a little bit more coverage than others, but not to the likings of how it should be. I personally think that Primavera should be a lot more put on television, a lot more, accessible and more interesting, more advertised better, essentially. On top of that, in our case, unfortunately, also our Primavera was relegated to Serie B at the same time, which they're still in first. They have won the but they won the title for the winter champion. So they are first in the league. I think they're at 3 points or whatnot difference to this away from the second spot. So go for the Grifoncini, which I'm really hoping and excited that they're still continuing the great momentum that Gilardino has left them with. And I guess that's all I wanted to cover before the break. Was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, just some really amusing things that happened in Serie A, I guess, in the same period of time. We talked already about Davide Nicola being fired and rehired. Our other Davide Ballardini, also
the two Davide.
As you might know, joined Cremonese and had a kind of a famous win against Napoli in his first match, which is kind of fun. Also seeing Vasquez in there as part of the lineup. Of course, he's been there the whole time. But
first person to take the penalty, by the way. And the fact of Ballardini coming to try to pick up the Cremonese 2 days in, faces Napoli, the superpower that beats all the teams in Europe, like spanks them, not even beats them, spanks them, and then is able to go to, and that's all you see from the Napoli fans is just like 2-2. The match, it did end 2-2, and they did go to extended time, but they did not win at the play with the penalties.
Didn't win penalties.
It was luck, perhaps, maybe. Great for Davide Ballardini.
You gotta love it. I don't know anybody who's a Genoa fan.
And I saw that meme, where Spalletti was trying to reach to the Juve. What's his face? The clown face. What's his name again? That starts with an A again, right? Anyways, he tries to reach out to him like for half an hour, trying to give him his hand, and then they put Ballardini's face on top of him to try to do the same thing with Spalletti. It was hilarious.
And then I think the icing on the cake on Monday for us was seeing Sampdoria just kind of get completely cheated out of a draw.
What a group of buffoons, like seriously thinking and trying to claim of Serie A all against them. They want them to be relegated and the whole refereeing system is against them. That was not a penalty. If so, it's that stupid, if I can say that, Gabbiadini that was trying to get a foul, which he actually did, in my opinion. Yeah. They gave it for him for the handball, but I think it was even just that action there, right there, when he jumped in against the defender. He was already going away with the ball anyway, so he came from behind.
That's karma right there. Someone said to me that's a bullshit foul. I was like, well, you have the bullshit master who's giving away that handball, Gabbiadini. So to have it be that guy that cancels out a goal. By the way, the goal was like assisted from the keeper too, so it'd been this whole thing, that asshole. But yeah, I mean, look, when you look at Serie B, and we were just talking about Venezia, they're 18th right now, but they're literally a win from being out of the relegation zone. Sampdoria are 7 points from safety right now, and there's a whole season to go, and it looks like that gap isn't going to get any shorter. So
there's a player that actually came out. He was at Napoli. No, he was at Roma first, and he did mention that because of Mourinho coming in, he didn't have any chance. Then he got loaned out to Sampdoria. Now he went back to Premier League. I can't remember the name of the player, but he did say that salaries have not been paid since September, October.
Oh my God.
Wow. So I'm still surprised how a lot of players are still playing, to be honest. Anyways, it's a bad situation down there, and karma there that's working there too. For the not so truthful Genoese side, on the other side. Anyways. All right, let's go to the break. We have a super guest coming up. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message. Welcome to the second half of La Antena podcast. And we have a extremely special guest, Matt. Don't you think so?
Absolutely.
So I'm not saying that we're supposed to be missionaries, but I have to say that I'm super proud, super happy, and extremely enthusiastic myself of having our guest today. I'll have him introduce himself, but essentially, long story short, and he has to tell us everything about it because I want more and more and more of people like him that essentially fell in love with the colors just because of whatever he's going to describe, but essentially because of the podcast, because of speaking to us, because of writing to us, and then eventually just fell for it. And then once you're in it, that's it. You can't leave. So everybody, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Eddie. Eddie, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. And when you messaged me today, I was like, oh, I'm hit the big time. This is it. Yeah, I'll tell you my background. I used to work in minor league soccer, and I did over 50 radio interviews or shows in New Orleans, mostly, I'd say 98% of the time in Spanish, when my Spanish was much better, and 2 television appearances, but this is my first podcast.
There we go.
Yeah. Very excited.
So to tell everybody, I mean, we know the story, but tell us a little bit more of where it started. Why did you start to listen to us? Where did you hear from us, and so on?
Okay, so I'm going to try and give you the condensed version of this, but I am a fan of Italian football, calcio, and I've been a fan for 30 years, more or less.
So just soon after you were born, of course, right?
Oh, pretty well, maybe halfway there. All right, and then I never found a team I really liked, and it was just always looking and looking. And I'm originally from New Orleans, and if Matt knows the history of the New Orleans Saints, I am not a glory hunter.
Right.
So
it was not. This is like the worst team you could possibly root for.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, we were hard. We used to wear bags on our heads because instead of calling us the Saints, they called us the Aints.
Yeah,
and they may be coming back soon. But and I was looking for a certain thing, and one of my dreams is always to move to Italy and retire there, or at least have a place where I could go and be part of a community there. And when I'm listening to looking at different teams, I literally have a spreadsheet of different cities and what the team needs to have for me to be a fan. And this has gone on for years. I'm not kidding you. This is probably 10 years I've been searching for the right place.
So this even makes it more special. If you
it makes it more special. It really does. It really does. And then I'm listening to all these Italian football podcasts. I probably 4 or 5 different teams. They're all pretty good. And then I heard you on David Farini's Lego Football podcast.
Yes, get in, David.
And you guys, I'm like, whoa, Genoa. Now I'll tell you, I have 2 friends who are fans of the other team in the city, and they tried to get me. And I'm gonna tell you, Mancini was a beautiful player. I mean, Vialli.
I hate to concede it, but it's true.
You know, Lombardo, all those guys. I mean, I watched them, and I remember them trying to convince me, but it didn't feel right. Something. I'll say this: you guys may not appreciate it as much. I think they have a beautiful jersey, but now that I've heard the story, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want that one. So then,
it's a mixture.
Okay.
It's a soup.
Well, it's yeah. And then here's the podcast. Well, I have to listen to this podcast, and this is probably, when did y'all do that show? Early in the season, right?
Yeah, it must have been like
August.
Yeah, maybe September, somewhere around there.
Yeah. And I listened to the show. I'm like, man, these guys are good. And I messaged you guys and said, look, new fan, love the podcast.
No, wait, you started saying 4%.
Well, yeah, so I said I started a fan of the podcast, but only a 4% fan of the club. Love your podcast. Kept listening. And now, one of the things that kind of blocked me before is I also was listening to a Belgian podcast, and I heard about Blessing before. And I was not 100% on board with him. just something about it. Just I didn't connect.
Yeah.
But I kept following the team. I think I told you, now you're up to 25%. And then y'all had a really good podcast right before Gilardino took over. Maybe the last two right before. And I'm like, man, you guys got me hooked. And Matt mentions that you can watch games on Hellbiz. I'm like, what the hell is that? Hellbiz? And I'm thinking, this is the stupidest thing. Oh my God, they sell some sort of e-scooters.
E-scooters?
Exactly.
And they've got,
doesn't make any sense.
They've got Lego B on video. Like, all right, here's my $5. I'm in. Let's do it. I started watching games now, and then I'm like, I started messaging.
Can you remember what was your first match?
Oh, it was only it was right before Christmas. The one right before Christmas.
Might have been Ascoli, maybe.
It was Ascoli.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great match, but it was, that was the first one. And it's really funny because I used to do scouting for 2 German teams, so my memory is really good on certain things. I can remember individual plays that strike my mind.
Hmm.
Nothing. That game was just a mundane game. Just
man,
it was a
slog.
Game. Yeah, but I said, you know what? I'm here. And then I started messaging Fab, asking questions, and I was telling him that I needed a place where the climate was good. Because if I'm going to ever have a place in Italy, which I'm still looking around, hopefully in 2026 I can do this. The weather's got to be good because I don't want to live in the heat. I can't have a team in the south because I'm going to melt.
Yeah.
And he sends me to check out the weather, and I look. I'm like, oh my God, this weather is beautiful. Then my son, who's lives about 2 hours away from me, we've always said if we win the Powerball, we got to find a place to go in Italy. That's it. We're done. And I showed him the weather. He's like, oh my God, that's fantastic. And then Fab sends me a picture of the stadium. The Ferraris is right there in town. I mean, in fact, one of the little apartments we saw was on the outside of the stadium. And it's not inexpensive, but the neighborhood's probably not the place to be because you have 34 weekends of
Yeah, I don't think I would choose to live next to the Marassi either, as much as I would love to go there every week. But
no, actually, I do have to say that in my youth, before I moved to Canada, in my teens, I was living not like in the apartments where Eddie was mentioning, which I think would have been even better for me anyways, but I was about 500 meters north from there. And I honestly can hear by opening the windows if there was like a bad foul, a score, and so on. And trust me, even though you might think it's chaotic with respect to traffic, yes, no parking, forget it, and all that stuff. But that emotion, that feeling, that air, it's just like unbelievable.
It's like a connection that's you can't explain.
Yeah. It's being that close. I'm not kidding you. I think the front door of this apartment building was less than 100 meters from the north end.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So, I was like, okay, my real kids, I got to make sure my son is on board because that's my grandson and my grandson to be.
Right.
So, if we ever pull this off, I got to make sure they're coming. So
right.
He works from home too, so it all could work. Now it's just convincing the missus. But
there you go.
So
she's cooking focaccia, so that's a good.
Oh yeah, I've got this worked out. I've been married for 38 years, my friend. I know how this works. So
next, I'm going to help you instead of the carbonara. No, what did you do? Matriciana?
She made carbonara last.
Carbonara,
time.
sorry.
Yeah.
Instead of the carbonara, next time I'm going to teach you how to do some pesto.
I've never been a pesto fan. I've never found it to where I can really enjoy it as much, but that's a long story.
Okay.
That's more me. So anyway, then blessing is asked and they named Gilardino. And back in the day, he was one of my favorite players. I mean, he's a great goal scorer. BB worked. He was not just a guy who he hustled. And he's just got some sort of air about him now. And I see him on the sidelines where I'm looking, this guy's brain is moving faster than everybody else's brain is moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I seem to remember hearing that he did really well at the Coverciano, the Italian school for coaches. And he did very, very well. And if that's the case, I mean, you've got, a great thing. And the new ownership, the stadium in the city, the climate, the uniforms, even though I'm not a big fan of the current provider, are beautiful. The usual, I mean,
Lots to work on that one, right?
if they had a great online store, this would be an easy, you know.
The
Again,
good thing is I have an insider within the club.
Is something changing on this end?
What's that?
Keep going.
No, and I don't think it's going to change. I don't know what is going to change. All he says is these are his words. So these are official from the inside. He says, we are aware of the situation. We're working on it. We apologize sincerely. Forgive us. So those are important words too, right?
The old, I miss the old site so much. There used to be, it was a really clunky site and everything, but you could buy like shot glasses and
like
caps and
keychain, beach towel, like,
mini ball.
The Vespa helmets with like the Actually, I almost got that when I was in Italy. I almost got that for my brother for a wedding gift. They had one that was like white with like the Rosso blue and the Griffin on the center. I was like, this is perfect. But it's also €300. It's like I'd probably spend that.
That's get something better. Yeah. So then the Giuliano happens. The podcasts have got me hooked, and it's gotten to the point where I look forward to this podcast every week more than any other podcast I listen to.
And I loved it every time Ed was like, he's putting the memes and stuff like that. I'm waiting. When is it coming out? I love it.
The clock is ticking. Let's go. I can't handle this anymore. The break was the worst because you know there's no games, and I had just gotten on board, and I'm like, there are no games now. I don't know if you can see this.
See a player. Okay.
It's a Genoa player. It's
well, it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell.
Okay. Who's that?
All right, it's Rovella.
Rovella. Okay.
So my wife and I went to Italy in November. And as I mentioned, I used to work in the game and have some friends there. And he said, I'll take you to a game. Well, the only game that fit in our schedule was Monza versus Salernitana.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm thinking, all right, well, Monza's probably going to be my club. That's the one. I mean, I saw Perugia play 2002. Okay. It wasn't a great experience. And then I thought, well, okay, this is it. Going to be the one. And as fate would have it, he had a family emergency, and we had no way to get to the game and then to our next stop in Modena. So he was going to take us to the game and then take us to Modena. We said, well, we can't do it. We go to the game. We're not going to get to Modena until midnight. That's not happening.
Right.
All right, we're out. But I started following Monza, and I started seeing Novella, and I'm checking out. Cambiaso, man, that kid's a good player from Bologna. Where are these guys coming from? They're all coming from where? Oh, they're coming from Genoa. That was another one. I need a good youth team, and then the Primavera coverage is so lousy. And I've been begging for something, and
I know.
I found a site that's all in Italian, and I can use Google Translate that has some information almost every day. And that's kind of feeding me, and I'm trying to hopefully though Twitter will respond to me eventually. But we got two guys in the U19 setup. Is it Lavani and a Gordo or something like that?
Well,
young guys.
I know they were playing also with the Italian national team just yesterday,
right?
I think, right? And
Today.
They lost, but
they lost.
A Cornero and Lipani. Yes,
Lipani. Yeah. That's it.
That's
and
right.
So that's good stuff for future. And that's what I look for. I mean, but the podcast was the one that really just seals the deal for me. I'm listening, and
now here you are.
I'm hooked. I mean, I'm hooked.
And now you're even on the chair.
I am the channel. I'm on the show.
I love it.
And I'm just, I mean, everything I was looking for, I found. Now, the wife, I'm trying to convince her we should go to Genoa maybe in the spring instead, but I don't know if I can pull the two trips to Europe in a year. That might not work.
You could. Now there's no direct, I think, to Italy, but there's new even low cost that are going over to Europe.
Yeah. I don't live in an area with a big airport like you guys do.
Yeah.
Okay, fair
So,
enough.
which on the
Right.
on one the plus side is really good because I can walk through security in 5 minutes.
Right.
Great.
I missed that about Kansas City. That was an amazing in and out experience, which I think that's going to change too, actually. But
In Kansas City, you mean?
they're like redoing. It's a boring story. They're redoing their airport and everything. But
But that's what happens in Genova too. You didn't fly into Genova. You flew into Milan.
no, I flew into Genoa. I flew. I don't. This is funny, actually. I flew into Munich, and from Munich flew to
Right.
Genoa.
Right,
So
on the
I
way
did fly
there.
in there. Yeah.
And it was in and out there. I mean, that was out there only, but it was quite.
It
seamless.
was, yeah, really fast. Actually, I kept messaging you guys. So worried when I got in there. It was the same day. I thought it was going to be the same day of the match because it was that thing where you didn't know when the match was going to get scheduled and all this stuff. And so I was panicking, but it took me maybe like 15 minutes to get out of the airport. So it worked out.
And that's like getting your check and your luggage and everything too, right?
Yeah, it was easy, super fast.
We're
So
going to
what are
talk
we
about
doing
this. We're going to talk about this more when I need to get the information. Fabry's giving me the list of places to eat and stuff like that. And I
Talk
wanna
to
get
Fabry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all over that. I mean,
The
our
Christopher
trip,
Columbus
we ate
Airport.
well. Yeah, but
Yes.
I'm thinking I could probably fly into Milan and zip on down the train and
Yep,
be easy.
Oh yeah.
you could definitely do that. Yeah, that train
Absolutely.
ride is easy. I did the train from there to Milan. That was kind of part of my route. And it was pretty simple.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
intercity, I
it's
think
on
it just stays below 2 hours and it brings you right directly into the city. Fantastic.
piece of cake. That's my secret plan. But she's gonna listen to the podcast, so
Well, that's what a lot of people say, and Matt can probably add to that, being like, first time that he went there last year as well. But it's a hidden gem, and it's definitely not on the truly beaten path for tourism and whatnot. But whoever goes there, they all fall in love.
It's a city that has like a beating heart still. You can still feel that. Like it's not, it definitely does not feel like tourism. I think I actually had like this kind of interesting conversation over focaccia and formaggio, actually, at some cafe somewhere. I was talking to this guy, and he, I think, was from Milan, but I guess he had bought like a house in Genoa and spends more of his time there now because he's retired. And his whole thing is like, there's a concept of a city with Genoa, like you have, or Geneva, I should say, that you have the main kind of central squares and all these other things and parks. And obviously you have the famous Carugi, which might be unsettling for some or whatever, but I think it's like really cool.
Alleys, right? The alleyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so much history with that. And it's, I think there was a period of time where it got written off a lot because of the motorways on the outside and some of it doesn't look as nice or whatever, but it's a true livable Italian city. And by the way, it's right next to the fucking Italian Riviera. So it's not like you're away from all this other stuff. So I don't know. I thought it was amazing. I could have spent a whole week there and I wouldn't have been bored. But
Yeah, great food,
yeah.
beach, mountain, countryside.
Yeah, the
everything.
mountains are right behind you. You turn around.
that's the part that's what gets me, the mountain view. Fabry sent me that picture and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I saw one of the, I guess it was on the website of training in the mountains in the background.
Oh yeah.
And then you're looking at the Primavera game with the Mediterranean in the foreground. You're like, the background there, I guess too. I'm like, oh man, I got to go here. This is a place I need to. So I've been watching YouTubes about the city and places to eat and stuff like that. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's on my list.
Gotta go.
I got to get there. And I said, it's crazy for me because I'm not kidding you. I've been looking for the team to support for years. And then I'm like, just out of nowhere, you guys show up. And by chance, here I am talking on a podcast about, a new love in my life. And I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of crazy, but
it sometimes feels like that. But I can relate to that so much though, because I kind of feel like when you're a fan, especially like following foreign teams is sort of a weird thing in general. And I think we've had some of the other folks we talked about too. Like we had another guest who is a fan that basically started because of a pair of like track shorts he got for Christmas. I pretty much started with a discount shirt I bought on
Our friend Zach.
Zach is the man. If he's not in We Are Genoa, by the way, we definitely need to get him in there. but it feels kind of crazy and random. And I definitely like the first several times I went to Genoa Club New York, everyone's looking at me like I was insane. Like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you don't need to do this thing. But it's
by the way, are you the only English speaking there? Like English meaning?
Well, no, I know. I'm the only. Yes, without Italian heritage anyway. There are a couple of folks that are my age that are they were born in America, but their families are Genoano, or they're Genoese. But I'm the only American full-on person that's there, I guess. But it's a hard thing to find a team because okay, what am I going to support Milan? Like, for what reason? And it just doesn't feel like a real authentic thing. And you kind of feel like you're just on the coattails, and it's like, oh, bummer, we finished third this year. This really sucks, and it's very different.
It really is. I like the struggle. I know it's probably silly, but I enjoy it when promotion happens. You'll feel true elation.
Right.
Matt can probably understand this. When the Saints won the Super Bowl 13 years ago, I cried tears of joy.
Yeah. And
it was just one of those things where, I don't mind. Now you can't see this, but I used to work in the game, and I used to work for a German team in particular. And there's a big German club that I hated, loathed them.
I have an idea.
And that went on for quite a few years. And then I was in Germany one day, and I was talking to somebody about how that club was run. And I want to go back. Fabry, you may not know this guy. There was a player in America called Clint Mathis. And Matt, you may remember him.
Mm-hmm.
I recommended him to my boss, and they told me I was recommending Captain America. There's no way this kid is this good. This is ridiculous. Not interested. I get to Germany. I'm talking to this German super agent. We're chatting back and forth. And he says, well, do you remember, they tried to sign Clint Mathis, from Major League Soccer, and they wouldn't sell him. And they brought up all these arguments that I was using against Major League Soccer. I'm not a Major League Soccer fan. I can't be. It drives me crazy. I would rather watch Serie D than Major League Soccer. So,
you and I are going to get along real well.
Okay. So, and I've got friends who've worked at different teams and things in Major League Soccer, but it just never took. Well, I started to learn more about this club and how they were operating. I'm like, you know what? The way they run their business is the way all clubs should run. And so one guy didn't pay his taxes. You know what? I'm not going to sweat that for me. But if you can avoid paying the man, it's okay with me. But they're just so well run, and they do charitable work that other people don't. And I'm like, you know what? I have to like them now. I don't have to watch them, but I'm okay when they're successful. I'm okay with it. I'm happy. There's no other German teams that are kind of, they will never compete.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
the cage system in European football is an interesting one. And I sometimes you kind of have to admire at least the operational side of how clubs do things and how if there's consistency, which isn't always something that happens, and something I can say I'm familiar with. Fabry is much more familiar with it because he endured many more years of Preziosi than I did. But you see that stuff from afar. I actually got on our group text today with Ballardini being sacked. I said shades of Preziosi, and I got a lot of yes, exactly kind of messages back. But it's crazy. It's a very interesting experience being a foreign fan. I'll say that much.
Well,
it is. Go ahead.
No, to your point that you were saying before, Eddie, the fact of you struggle and so on. And I think you wrote these words more or less, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that sweet feeling of when something happens, it makes it even taste better than to what Matt was saying before. It's this year we came third instead of first. It's quite different. And I think you'll see it, even though whenever it happens, and hope this year, of course, but the promotion and whatnot, it'll just almost feel like we won the championship.
Yeah.
It'll just be
It will.
tears, and people will go if well, I'll definitely share it anyways on social media. But people will go into the fountain of that. Matt has been there to the biggest. Actually, it's considered the biggest fountain in Europe, which is the main square in Genova called
Piazza de Fiori.
Piazza de Ferrari.
Piazza, sorry. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Ferrari, yeah. And people just go not dive because it's not that deep, but they go into the fountain, whatever time of year it is. it's like a big party, you know, not to the levels of Argentina, mind you. People even got too much hurt there, but you know, it's just like beautiful.
You don't expect yourself being a fan in, you know, the United States idolizing a Northern Macedonia international player for scoring a goal to keep the team up. But like the number of times I fist bumped in the air because of Goran Pandev over the last several years, just like
I can't believe, like, if thinking back, he was our main striker for
years, and he was like,
my God. He's like, okay, I'm gonna retire this year. No, maybe not this year. Okay, next year.
Ballardini's like, no, you have to stay. We have no one else.
I have no one else.
Well, isn't that kind of the story of you know, since oh my gosh, I can see the guy's face, Milito.
Yeah.
Milito, oh God. Actually, yeah, I can't remember who else. No, after him we had a few.
We had Gilardino, but I mean
Tony, but you know, these are like
yeah,
not fresh guys.
Palacio.
Not
Probably Palacio, okay, fine, but that was like almost together with Milito. But
Yeah.
maybe at least for us for 6 months,
Piantek for a hot
for
second.
our 6
Yeah.
months, he was great. Then he went to
Simeone for a
Milan,
hot second.
right? But-
Allegri for a hot second. Kwame for a hot second.
yeah, that's true too. Kwame was that raw talent that then it didn't explode.
Never really happened though. Yeah. Piantek was fun though.
With us, yeah, he was like the goal scorer of Serie A for 6 months.
Tolero.
But no, yeah, but to your point, Eddie, I for the longest I can remember, at least within the recent, you know, since at least Piozzi's era, they have focused a lot. That was his bread and butter, to focus a lot on the youth team, because it was one
Right.
way to make him big money. But on the other side too, it's just producing that young talent that it's important, especially when you think about the Italian team not even qualifying for 2 World Cups in a row. And if we have to work somewhere to make this Italian team better, you have to work from the youth up, not the way around.
that's it. You can't keep importing your most valuable players.
That's right.
And we're a club where the budget's going to be, I mean, 20,000. That was another selling point. 20,000 season ticket holders in Serie B. I mean, wow, that's amazing. But
It
you
is.
cannot, if you have, there's the young striker, De Benedetti.
Yeah.
If he turns out to be a real player, and they can have him playing for a couple €100,000 a year, and he's scoring goals, well, you know, eventually he's going to want to go to a bigger club, or we have to qualify for Europe to keep him. But it's one of those things that I've learned a lot of times players don't see that their best options aren't to leave too soon. You know, they leave too quickly,
Yeah.
and then they're on the bench, they're not playing enough. You know,
That's right.
the step, and you got to make sure you make the right steps. So hopefully, you know, these kids, I mean, like Ravella leaving for Juventus. I mean,
That one hurt. I mean, it was the last couple of seasons we've kind of seen these guys emerge, and then you just know we maybe have this player for another year. Or maybe we sell him and then we get him on loan for another year, and that's going to be that's just what it's going to be. And
Now this might age me a little bit, but you're absolutely right, and this hurts me myself too, to see all this young talent that we're breeding, and they just feel that they have to leave, because what else are you going to do here? Like always fighting for relegation every year, and if not even being relegated, as it happened, right? Which in my opinion, as we talked several times, Matt, it's probably the best for us to have been relegated for the 1 year. It's just like a good reset anyways, right? But I remember, so to Eddie's point at the beginning, when he did say, you know, they were talking and trying to buy me into the other team, if we want to call it team, but with Vialli, Mancini and whatnot, I remember our side that unfortunately got a little bit shadowed by that. because the unfortunate part is when we ended fourth that season, we went
Talking about that, was it like 94?
92.
92.
91, 92 was the year that we got qualified to the fourth spot for the back then UEFA Cup, which is now Europa League, right?
Right.
And with Scuravi and Aguilera and all that great team behind it, Eraño and whatnot. Oh my God, that was the dream team. Like, it was an amazing team to watch. These great players wanted to come, wanted to stay. Because why? Because it was a great team. It was like, the Gasperini style when we had Gasperini, but with the results too, right?
Right.
And the fact that being the first Italian team also to go to Anfield and win over there, that was just insane back then. Insane. I can still remember it to this day, but
joys, man. The joys of our youth.
I know. It'll happen. We want that start, and it's going to come eventually, sooner or later, but it's going to come.
There is a really great, I think maybe Fabry, I might have sent this to you before, and Eddie, you might have actually seen this before too, but there's an awesome article on The Guardian on that season. It's on both Genoa teams, but it's called The Season When Genoa Nearly Took Over European Football. And it just kind of chronicles this, because it was at the time, I guess, a little bit of an oddity that both of us were competing the way they were. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know for sure if Sampdoria had been climbing up the ranks or whatever in the seasons before that, but
I don't know. It's like a few teams put together, matched together, so I don't really follow them.
Yeah, exactly. This mismatch of clubs. But anyway, gentlemen, we got a match this weekend. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. So next one coming up is Benevento. So that's match day 21. They're on the 15th spot. They're definitely part of that group because it's not only one that has been disappointing, and I'm not putting a finger obviously to our poor Venezia, but it's another team that kind of is disappointing compared to what they were expecting or what they were planning to happen. We haven't seen much of them actually up in the higher ranks, and even with the Cannavaro coming in, which everybody would have thought just because of the name, just because of the stature of that man coming in, that it would have made that difference, and he didn't do a great impact. Actually, even to Marco's comments from last pod, and he was talking about the fact that he has that sort of personality that is clashing a little bit with the players as well, contrary to Gilardino, which everybody's loving him because he's so more soft and more soft-spoken and more respectful, while with Cannavaro it's a little bit the opposite. I don't know. What do you guys think about the next match? So it's Benevento against Genoa. So it's at Benevento. Saturday.
I don't think, actually, I was wrong. It looks like is the match. Oh, it is Saturday, the 21st. I always get confused by European dates. It's like the 23rd or the 21st. I read on SofaScore too much. That's where I get a lot of my information. So I don't know. I don't think this is a trap game. I think this is a game that we should win. It's a weird one, to your point, Fabry, because at the beginning of the season, like Benevento is a side that like they were recently in Serie A. They've been competitive in Serie B the last couple of seasons. I think they finished like somewhat in the mid-table last year. I can't recall if they were in the playoffs or not, but they obviously weren't in the final playoff to make it up to Serie A.
They were in the playoffs.
Yes, they at least had a competitive, fairly competent season. You'd think squad-wise they'd be able to get something together, but they don't look like a team that's really got a lot of positive momentum going. I mean, their last several isn't bad. 2 draws and a loss in their most recent games, and then 2 wins before that. But I don't know. I mean, they don't seem to be a side that's incredibly potent going forward, which is, I think, in our favor, because we're starting to kind of figure that part out. And if there's a single squad benefit of this squad, as we were talking about earlier, I think our defense is really where we have that, and we've got even more quality now with Mimo back in the squad. So I'm not sure really exactly who we need to be careful looking out for. Maybe Farias, one of their forwards. But I think this is a match we can win.
keep in mind their last win comes from November 12th against Spal at Ferrara, mind you. But then after that, there is a tie, which is still important against Regina. But then you get a loss at home against Palermo, a loss at, my bad, 8th of December against Parma. At Parma, they win.
Yeah.
Then there's a loss at home against Cittadella. Then there is a tie with Modena at Modena, a loss at home against Perugia. Let's don't compare to our loss with Perugia. 2-0, exactly. And then the last one, which is a tie at Cosenza, which, for battling Cosenza, they're trying everything possible to get their points. And, is it maybe at the levels of Cosenza? Are they trying? I don't know. It's a very tough team to read. I agree with you, Matt, to say that the team is not unreachable.
Yeah.
Eddie, what do you think?
So, yeah, this is one of those teams, like I said, I don't think it's a trap game, like Matt said. I think this is a chance for Gilardino to show his chops versus his compatriot. I don't know what they're the same. They're the same guys, and he's got to show that all these decisions he's making, he's going to know how to think and outthink Cannavaro. And we talked about it in the We Are Genoa chat about some coaches are good here and good there. We've got a new manager, but he's pushing all the right buttons and he's making logical decisions. And I'm a big fan of letting, Puskas run off around the field, wear the defense down, bring Coda in late. They're already tired. They don't have any subs. He's perfect. That's the Joker. You want to bring him off the bench and there he scores.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a formula, but he's got enough guys at his disposal.
That's right.
And those guys getting the minutes against Roma, they're going to be valuable later on in the season. This might be this weekend. They're valuable. I think it's a winning opportunity. I don't think it's one that you play for the draw. And you've got a leader in Strutman, and actually you've got quite a few leaders on this team. And Martinez is playing phenomenal. I guess the Italians don't predict scores too often, right? That's what I've gotten the gist. But I could see the advantage is to Genoa by far.
I've outed myself on several occasions, and we've had Italian guests and been like, "Okay, Matt, what's your prediction?" And they have some 2-goal advantage or something. Like, this guy's not Italian. There's no way. Italian guy would make that prediction.
I remember also Enrico from Vietnam, and he was like, "No, you can't do a prediction. It's going to be bad luck."
I think we stopped at that episode. We kind of
still writes me once in a while. The great Enrico, and he's like, "Fabrizio, you did it again. You can't say this stuff."
I have been a lot more self-conscious of it lately, though. I don't know if you've noticed. I've been more conservative in my predictions.
You have, but I thought it was more because you were in a negative patch. But
that to be fair, that's also true. At least pre Gila. But I mean, it's a kind of an interesting opportunity too. I guess Frosinone have sort of a similar match this weekend as well. They're playing Brescia, but as we mentioned, Brescia's kind of in a strange way themselves right now. I think that game is kind of a wild card, though. New manager. Who is the old manager? And
I know exactly.
I think that Brescia team actually they really fell off. I mean, remember they were in the top 3 or 4 for a while to begin the season.
Didn't Brescia have some sort of issue with their owner where he was charged with crimes or something like that?
I think, Eddie, I remember something about their ownership.
Something happened with them when he had to leave.
Cellino?
I mean, that's just a memory I have where he had to step away from the club, I thought.
Could be. I have to look into it.
It seemed like that happened and the club took a dip.
Maybe. Could be. I didn't really follow that deep, but
I was still searching for a home.
So then more than we do. They definitely have
a few years ago, yeah.
They definitely have one of our Primavera, our former baby captain, that I still miss, and I don't know why it got sold out like that so easily, but it's okay. But no, going back to Benevento, so we do have some X's in there. We definitely have their goalie, Paleari. Do you guys remember him a little bit? So he was this goalie that came from Cittadella with high hopes and whatnot, but never ended up really clicking in. And eventually we had to kind of sell him off, like many other players, with the amount of players that a lot of people still complain about, Spores and whatnot, but both Ottolini and Spores before him, the amount of players that we had to place out there because of that mess that the former owner had done is like just insane.
Cagliari had some howlers, didn't he? Am I making that up? I feel
Yeah,
like
he did
had
have a
some
couple.
pretty bad performances. That season was a kind of a bad one anyway, the one that he played for us. But
Yeah, it was like, I think it was those, to your point, is like those two matches where he didn't do that well and that just didn't do it. And that was it. He was out. That's the bad thing about goalies too, right? You do two bad performances and you're sort of, unless you count on them and you point for them, but so yeah, no, I guess let's do a round of prediction, like some calls out there. Who wants to start?
I'll
I'll happily go with a solid Gilardino 1-0.
I like it.
Who would you say is the goal scorer, Eddie?
It's going to be you know what? No, Goodmanson's going to be the goal scorer. That's stealing Matt's goal scorer probably, but
I have put Goodmanson up there a lot of
or it's going to be Aramo who's going to come. He's going to come good this week.
I know Ramos. This guy is like, I can't put my thumb on him exactly. I feel like he's had some games where he's been like so mercurial, and he has this kind of capability. And there's other games where he just sort of just drifts out of the game altogether. I guess that was Marco kind of warned us about that in one of our earlier pods.
He's right. He's right.
It's exactly how he's played. But I wouldn't be shocked to see him, and I would definitely expect him probably to be in the starting lineup. So I like that prediction, Eddie. I don't know. I mean, I think Genoa will win. Maybe I'll hold on giving a goal scoring prediction. But I think Goda will be at the double. So do with that what you will. It's a match we have to make sure we take seriously, but I think we will. This team doesn't seem like we're a team yet where we can relax. And this last match against Venezia is a good example. I mean, we were outplayed for a good chunk of that match. So I expect we're going to be taking this one with every bit of attention that it deserves.
You're not going to go with the goal scoring then? You're holding on?
I said Coda will be at the double, so.
Okay, that's all you're saying?
2-0 to Genoa.
Goal scorers.
Yes.
Go with the goal scorers.
Oh, Coda. Massimo Coda.
Both?
Yes, two.
Oh, sorry. I missed that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that because I was a little bit towards thinking that, because I think Coda had that pressure that it's obvious, it's normal after winning 2 championships as a goal scorer for Serie B. And the fact of not being able, perhaps even from his last interview, that he said that with Blessin, he was a little bit less of, he didn't really expand too much, but he talked about chances to go. And he said that with Gilardino, he has a lot more. But I'm looking at the numbers for Benevento, and whether it is for Pagliari or not, they are not in the worst place for goals allowed. So I even look at the last few matches, except a few that are a couple. So you get the Perugia 2-0 or the 2-2 with Regina. Most of the times they're either goalless or one goal at a time. So what I'm trying to say is, like, it doesn't sound like it's a team that you can win 2-3-4-0 type of thing, or even 3-2 or something like that. So I think Eddie's, well, like in my mind, if I look at on the paper, I do see that the 2-0 to Matt's point makes more sense. I did like, as I mentioned before, the two goals by Coda. I think it might be more of a mix. Yeah. It could even be a Bani that finally the poor guy is trying.
I know.
Our captain, and then finally makes one in.
I thought he scored one like in 3 separate matches, and it just didn't happen.
I know, it's like purely unlucky. Or
isn't he suspended for this match?
Yes, he is actually. You're right. And a lot of people are actually speculating with a youth back and everybody's a little bit worried because maybe Vogliacco with Dragusin and who else did they mention?
Enter the
with
Dragon,
the new guy,
man.
Maturo.
Maturo's not ready yet, from what
I don't think.
but he's going to be a player for the future. But the Dragon, I mean, that guy was a wall last week.
I love the Dragon Man as the nickname.
I honestly think he was almost at par with Martinez to be the MVP of the match, if not just a notch less, but he was just on it. Like that save, again, similar to Martinez save, that was like a goal made.
But the assist is what gave him my vote.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
That was a ball I didn't think he could play. He played a perfect ball. And out of nowhere, your best friend Yalchin makes the flick, and we're all in shock.
That's thanks to the Dragon. That's thanks to the Dragon.
The Dragon does it.
He needs the Dragon. So
I want to interrupt you real quick here. So one of the first things with I'm watching my first game, and I'm seeing. I mean, Matt's talking about Gudmundsson, player. I'm like, who the hell is Albert?
Yeah.
Who the hell is Albert?
Why do they do that?
His name's too long to fit on the back of the jersey, is what I figure. But I had to create a PDF file, my own little PowerPoint.
Oh, I love it.
So, and I just shared it with y'all so I could learn who the team is and get an idea. So I have a better idea what's going on. So I just shared that with y'all so y'all can enjoy that.
I love that. It's honestly, it's kind of important though, because like I feel also, I mean, you're no stranger to this, Eddie, but in Italian football, like, all these guys have numbers that make no sense for the position they're playing. So it's like, who is this guy? Like, what is going on right now?
57.
Oh, I love this. I'm looking at the slide right now. It's beautiful. It's perfect. Yeah.
Well, back in my past, I also did play-by-play and stadium announcing for a minor league team. And I was using my old, just using pieces of paper and having it written out in front of me so I could look at it. I said, you know what? I got to do this with this so I could figure it out. And of course, this are bringing guys off the bench I don't even have on there yet. So I'm like, okay. And I've been just too busy with work to add to it.
And actually, I'm going to throw a curveball. So going back to my prediction, I think it's going to be a 1-0.
1-0. I think you're.
And it's going to be a screamer by Mimo.
Ooh, I would love to
like
see
that.
I would love to see that.
Like that goal he did in Toronto. Oh, I can still feel it now.
Man.
Even though I'm not a fan of MLS myself either, but that goal he did at Toronto is still there to like in the. It's just beautiful. He did a few with Genoa too. So he has a fine foot, especially from outside the box. Like similar to Aram in a way, but
he Strootman as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I actually thought when you were saying a wonder goal, I was like, is he like a Strootman from like 40 yards out or something? But I mean, to your point, Fabry, the last time we played them in the league, it was a 0-0 draw, and that was also a pretty. Remember we were talking, it was a pretty physical match. There wasn't a whole lot of open space in it. We won in the Coppa Italia a couple weeks earlier.
That was a disappointment, right? Because it was like 4 or 5 days after, or something like that.
It was really quickly after. Yeah, we played them August 8th and won 3-2, and it was really 3-1. They got like a weird goal at the end of the game.
Right.
And then we played them again August 20th. So it was about like 12 days.
Right. So we were expecting the same team, but they totally changed their module and whatnot. And that kind of threw us off. Threw Blessing off. Definitely. Nothing against him, of course, but and I think Gilardino might be able to mind you, again, every time we play against a team, they become Barcelona of the situation, whether they close at the back or whatever that is, they become all phenomenals. And I'm not saying that Venezia did that, but at the same time, obviously everyone's going to put their best against what even Marco said, what he believes that it's the best team of the league. Nevertheless, we're playing in their own turf right now, this time around, instead of being at the Marassi. So maybe there will be more chances, and maybe Matt will do the right prediction with the 2-0 or maybe 2-1. I don't think so, because guys, in the last 5 matches, 0 goals conceded, 0. And that's under Gilardino, right?
Yeah, the defensive coach, genius. They've given him some opportunities, but Martinez keeps rising to the occasion.
And to Matt's point in the first half that you didn't hear, Eddie, he's saying that in his opinion, rightfully so, I think so too, I agree with that, that I think Gilardino has called that his first goalie will be Martinez.
That's the answer right now. I mean, he's the great wall of Genoa right now.
0 goals conceded under Gilardino is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, mind you, against Roma, 1 goal. Okay, fine, but
doesn't matter. It's a
that
cup
goal
game.
was pretty well. I mean, that was,
and even then, I remember that.
yeah.
I still remember his hand up like this for half an hour, saying, "Damn it, I almost got it." Anyways, thank you, Eddie, for being
my pleasure.
Fantastic guest. It's still like unbelievable, your story. I want to have that multiplicated by a gazillion. And so happy for you. After 30 years, you're picking Genoa. To me, it's just like my heart beats so hard. And so again, thank you. Please.
My pleasure.
Please, we'll always keep in touch. Now we have that chat. We also advertise it right at the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so whoever wants to reach out to be part of the chat, English-speaking Genoano, pro Genoano, whatnot, reach out to us. You can always follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And as always, and never forget, Forza Genoa.
Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.